Alright, we're going to get back into it again, and let's see, it is, well actually, welcome to the JFK assassination video number, what's this going to be, number 23? No, 33, excuse me, wow. And it is December 8th, excuse me, and only a few more days left till the end of the year and the new year, 2023. Wow. Okay, so we're going to get into this. So just continue down my timeline here. So at 11:30, Charles Gibbons said that he encountered Oswald reading a newspaper in the first floor domino room at 11:50. So I don't quite understand that, but anyway, we're going to read and see what he says here. Alright, so this is where he gives one of those sworn statements. Says, I work at the Texas School Book Depository. I worked up on the 6th floor today until around about 11:30 a.m. Then I went downstairs into the bathroom at 12 o'clock. I took my lunch period. I went to the parking lot at Record and Elm Street. I have a friend who works at the parking lot. We walked up to Main and Record when the president passed by. We then walked back to the parking lot after the president had passed by. We had just got back to the lot when we heard the shooting. I think I heard 3 shots. I did not see anyone in the building that was not supposed to be there that morning. So that's quite a haul right there. So basically, he doesn't say anything about Oswald here. Okay. He said at 11:30 went down from the 6th floor, so he was working on the 6th floor, tearing up the floor there, I guess. And he did that until 11:30, and then he went to lunch at 12. He went out the back on the back loading dock at Record and Elm, and then they walked back to Main and Record, and I guess they saw the president go by. Well, that's kind of interesting. I'm not exactly sure how you can do that, but anyway, hold on one second. Alright, so I see what he's saying. So he says, right here, he says, at 12 o'clock, I took my lunch period. I went to the parking lot at Record and Elm. I have a friend who works at the parking lot. We walked up to Main and Record when the president passed by. So here's the school book depository. Here's Elm. That must be the parking lot there, because this is Record. And then he went to Record in Main, which is right here, and he saw the president go by. And then he says, when we then walked back to the parking lot after the president had passed by, we had just got back to the lot when we heard the shooting. I think I heard 3 shots. I did not see anyone in the building that was not supposed to be there this morning. So they walked there, they saw the president go by, then they walked back to the parking lot, and they heard 3 shots. Okay, that's kind of believable. Alright, and that's his first statement there. Now let's read what he says. Let's see, I think I was reading through this yesterday. I just want to go over that again. But let's see what he's saying here. Alright, so let's read over this again. So he says, when did you see Lee Harvey Oswald next? Because remember, he was seeing him upstairs on the 6th floor. He says, well, it was about 11:45, so that'd be 11:45. We were on our way downstairs, and we passed him, and he was standing at the gate on the 5th floor. Now, he just said that at 11:30 he went to the bathroom, so he must have been 11:45. Anyway, I came downstairs. I discovered I had left my cigarettes in my jacket pocket upstairs. I took the elevator back upstairs to get my jacket with my cigarettes in it. When I got back upstairs, he was on the 6th floor in the vicinity, coming from that way. Coming from what way? Toward the window up there where the shots were fired from. Just a second. Where did he go? Where were you when you saw him on the 6th floor? I had went and got my jacket and was on my way back to the elevator. Alright, just a second. I'm going to get a plan. Okay, we already went over this yesterday. So it's amazing how in these statements, not in reality, but in these people's statements, they all live in their own bubble, that doesn't cross paths with the other people. So I find it interesting that Daughtry can say he was up there, and Shelley can say they were up there, and and Lovelady can say they're up there, but they never see any of these other people, even though they're passing at different in the same times, which I find quite interesting. Anyway, we'll keep moving on here. Let's see. You were standing at that point. Where did you see Lee Harvey Oswald? Well, I was along here, indicating. All right, you are pointing at the spot. You say along in here. Huh, interesting. You can see a scale. Da, da, da. Now, did you notice whether or not there were any cartons stacked up around the southeastern corner of that 6th floor? Well, I didn't pay any attention about any being stacked because we had taken all the stock from that side of the building and ran it down that side. You had taken it down from the west part of the 6th floor where you were working and put it in there. So again, this just shows you that Oswald, if he was working up there, could have taken all those boxes over to that corner because that's what he was instructed to do. Just like, everyone else was doing the exact same thing. Let me see here. He was between the stock and the windows coming towards the elevator. Coming towards the elevators, yes, sir. Did you see all of his body or not? Yes, sir. He had his clipboard in his hand. Yes, sir. Was that the kind of aisleways over there? And so a lot of the government people make a big deal about the clipboard being found on the 6th floor. Well, if Oswald's working on the 6th floor, okay, and say he's pulling stock from the 6th floor and it's time to go to lunch, he's going to leave his clipboard there so he can come back and finish getting the rest of the stock that he's trying to get on the 6th floor. That's why the damn clipboard's there. It's nothing like Oswald left the clipboard there and then ran over and fired and shot the president. Anyway. Was that kind of an aisleway over right next to the east wall that he was walking along or what? Yes, sir. They have aisles. Now, was there stock in the back of them as well as in the front? Were you there? God, their sentence doesn't make much sense. Were you there where you had stacked it up or not? Or don't you remember? I just don't understand the syntax here. Anyway, well, there was already some books stacked there. Were there books stacked between where you saw him and the window itself? Yes, sir. All right. So, see, there's stacks of books all over the place. All right. He was walking with his clipboard from the southeast corner. Yes, sir. Where did you see him walking? What direction did you see him walk in? He was coming towards the elevators. From Elm Street side of the building? Yes, sir. So that you'll be walking in a northerly direction? Yes, sir. Now, you said that he had a clipboard in his hand. Yes, he had. Now, see, okay, look. If you've got the building here and this is the floor, and you've moved all the fucking stock, the boxes, over here because you're tearing up the floor on the west side, the east side's where all the damn boxes are going to be. So if Oswald's up there getting stock, he's going to be coming from that damn direction. So there's no mystery there. Anyway. Let's see. Well, it's possible. God, this is just so fucking ridiculous. And then he says, boy, you're going downstairs. What did he say? I say, it's near lunchtime. No, sir. When you get downstairs, close the gate to the elevator. That meant the elevator on the west side. You can pull both gates down. It will come up by itself. Well, the reason he's saying that, because he wants the elevator to come up to him. If the gates are open, he can't bring the elevator up to him. So he's telling him to close the gates, okay, so you can bring the elevator, so I can take the damn elevator back down. That's all. What did you say to that? Did you say you would close the elevator gates or not say anything? I said okay and got on the elevator. What elevator did you take down? I take this one, the east elevator. The east elevator, do you know whether or not when you go down to the first floor, the west elevator was there? No, sir, it wasn't, because I looked over to the closed gate and it wasn't there. Let's see. Hold on one second. When I go down to the first floor, Harold Norman and James Jarman and myself, we stood over by the window, and then we said we was going outside and watched the parade, so we walked out and we stood there a while, and then I said, I believe I will walk up to the parking lot. I had a friend that worked on the parking lot right on Elm and Record. Elm and Record Streets? Yes. Or Elm and Record Streets? Yes, sir. That would be 1 block east of the corner of Elm and Houston. That's right. All right, then what did you do? I stood around over there and went up on the corner. What corner? On Main, up on Main and Record. That is where I watched the president pass right there. Who else was with you when you knew? With you that you knew? James and Edward Shields. Is that the same person, James Edward? Edward Shields and James. 2 other people? Yes. Good Lord. Couldn't make it any more confusing. You watched the motorcade together. Now in his previous statement he said he just went and saw it with 1 person. Now he's got 2 people with him. What did you do after you watched the motorcade? We turned and started back down to the parking lot. Then what did you do? Then we heard the shots. By the time we got along into the site in front of the record building, then we heard the shots. I want to backtrack a minute before we come to the shots. When did you eat lunch? When did I eat lunch? I ate lunch after. Let's see. No, I ate lunch before. Good Lord. It's like these other guy. You know, I ate lunch before I went up there because I stood outside and ate my lunch standing out there. You ate your lunch outside. Yes, sir. So that must have been between 12 and 12:30. Yes, sir. Standing in front of the building. In front of what building? The Texas School Book Depository. So now he's in front of the Texas School Book Depository. Good Lord. Did you ever eat your lunch inside the building? Yes, sir. I eat inside the building all the time. On November 22nd, did you eat inside the building? No, sir. Now, you said you saw Lee Harvey Oswald on the 6th floor around 11:55, right? Did you see Lee Oswald anywhere else in the building between 11:55 and the time you left the building? No, sir. On November 22nd? No, sir. Did you see him in the domino room at all around between 11:30 and 12 or 12:30? No, sir. Did you see him reading the paper? No, not that day. I did. He generally sat in there every morning. He would come to work and sit there and read the paper, and the next day paper, if today's was Tuesday, he would read Mondays in the morning when he would come to work, but he didn't that morning because he didn't go to the domino room that morning. I didn't see him in the domino room that morning. How do you know it was the previous day's paper that he read? Because he would be sitting there and I would look at him, and when he got through and got up to go to work, I would get it and look at it. Would it be the News, the Time Herald? Well, they bring the Dallas Morning News around the morning. Fellows brings it to work. You mean he would read someone else's newspaper that somebody else brought to work? Yes, sir. Did you ever know him to buy his own newspaper? No, sir. I never saw him buy one. Because Oswald was frugal. He was saving his money and trying to pay off that damn loan. Anyway. Well, Harold, Norman would generally bring one, and James Jarman would generally bring one. Let's see. Now, you say you left the 6th floor. Well, you said you left it. Well, hold on, God. Well, now you say you left the 6th floor. Well, you said you left it first to go. Did you go down with other employees in the elevator? Yes, sir. About what time was that now? That was about a quarter. I said about a quarter to 12. 11:45. Who else was in the elevator? Do you remember? There was Bonnie Ray Williams, Billy Lovelady, Danny, and myself. That was Danny Arking. Yes, the Spanish boy. Then you say you got down there, and you say you wanted to get your cigarettes, so you went back up. Yes, sir. What the elevator did you go down on? I came on the east elevator. What elevator did you take back? The east elevator. Had you eaten any chicken or left a pep bottle in the previous days on the 6th floor? No, sir. Did you go immediately to your jacket to get and went back up to the 6th floor? Yes, sir. I went straight and picked up my jacket. Where was your jacket? It was on the west side of the building where we were working. Well, there are 7 pairs of windows. Was it on the south wall of the building? Was it near any one of those buildings on the south wall, or was it near the center west side? Now, another thing I'm just thinking here. So if you got all those people, 5, 6 people working on the 6th floor, tearing up the floor, even if it's on the west side, don't you think one of them would have seen Oswald bring a rifle up there that morning? I mean, anytime that morning. How did Oswald get that rifle up there with 5 or 6 guys working on that floor without seeing him carry that package or see that rifle? And then, again, we go through the whole thing. He's got to assemble that rifle. He's got to screw those, put that barrel into the stock, put those screws in there. He's got to put that scope on. He's got to put that clip in. He's got to sight that rifle up and cock it back, with no one seeing him. Okay? Cocking that bolt or hearing that bolt go forward. He's got to do all that while there's 5, 6 guys on that floor that morning from 8 to 12 or 8 to 11:45. And let's just say Oswald brought that package immediately up there that morning. Say he got up there before no one else. Where's he hiding it? He's got to put that rifle in that package where no one else can see it for 4 or 5 hours. He's risking that someone is going to stumble across that rifle while they're doing stock. It doesn't make much sense. Anyway, we'll keep going. Well, there are 7 pairs of windows. Was it on the south wall of the building? Was it near any one of those buildings on the south wall? Or was it more to the center of the west side? It was more to the corner of the west side. I would say along the second window. Got 2 more minutes. When you say the corner, do you mean the corner of the stairs? God, they really go into all these fucking details. It just doesn't make much sense to me. And then they go into a lot of details about bullshit that doesn't matter. And then they completely skipped over obvious things that they should probe more into. Anyway, that's just me. You have pointed to a spot where it appears to be approximately 25 feet north, or about 10 feet east of the southwest corner of the 6th floor. Would that be right? Who cares? Yes, sir. Have you pointed to a spot on this floor plan here when you walked from the east elevator to pick up your jacket? Did you see Lee Oswald there? No, sir. Did you see him anywhere on the 6th floor? You're walking off the elevator to pick up your jacket? No, sir. I didn't see him until I got back along here, about in the front of the elevator, fixing to get on. As you're walking to the first spot, which we'll describe as somewhat as the east of the elevator, where you stand or about to get on the elevator, or what? Yes, I was fixing to get on. You were fixing to get on? The elevator was still there when you left it, when you came up? Yes, sir. As you were starting to get on the elevator or were turning to get on it, you saw Oswald walking with his clipboard. Yes, sir. Now, was he walking in a diagonal direction directly toward you and the elevator, or was he walking more in a direction parallel to the east wall there? Yes, I would say, yes, sir, he was going like this. Like what? He was coming down the aisles straight. Yes, sir. Okay. Anyway, that's enough of that nonsense. These are not the best witnesses, But anyway, we'll pick this up again tomorrow. The reason I'm reading over all this is because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something that's important. Because it's like they've thrown in all this bullshit, and then in between they've got little gems of questions that they ask or that they don't ask when it's obvious. They should be asking a question. Anyway, all right. Now we're going to skip to the next section. and again, this is about the paper bag. We're almost finished. It says, please bear in mind that the rifle was alleged to have been disassembled. Again, this is on free homepage, JFK Research paper sack. Make it all the more likely that the residues of the interior surfaces of the bolt and or the firing pin would have stained the paper. No duh. And just think, you're going to assassinate the president, and you got a really, horrible rifle. So you're going to oil that sucker up the night before and make sure that it runs smooth, okay? And all that extra oil is going to come off in that bag. Any excess oil in that bolt is going to come out on that bag, but there's nothing. Remarkably, none of the sniper's nest photos taken by Lieutenant Day or Detective Studebaker show the paper allegedly found beneath the window. You would think that such an important piece of evidence would have been photographed in place. Now remember, they say they found it here, and they drew a little diagram, but even the police officer said that the diagram was the full length of the paper and that the paper had been folded in half. But we won't know this because they never took a picture of the paper bag that's so important that they destroy when the FBI is trying to find fingerprints on it, and then they make a fake paper bag to show witnesses in the Warren Committee testimony. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, we'll keep going. The area where the paper bag was allegedly discovered was photographed by DPD, but there's no bag in the photo. They had to draw a little diagram that wasn't even the right size. Anyway, this corresponds to the testimony of the first law enforcement on the scene. Sheriff Luke Mooney, who discovered the sniper's nest, told the Warren Commission, "Did you see a paper bag at any of the windows?" "No, sir, I didn't." Mr. Hill, the only specifics we discussed were this. You were asking Officer Hicks if he either one recalled seeing a sack, supposedly the one that had been made by the suspect, in which he could have possibly carried the weapon into the depository, and at that time you told the small sack that appeared to be a lunch sack, and that was the only sack that I saw, and that I left the book depository prior to finding of the gun. Now, okay, but it's so amazing how great hindsight is, but hindsight doesn't cover you in the present, okay? So just think of this. There's been the shooting from the 6th floor window. It takes them 30 minutes to get up to that damn window, okay? But once they do get there, they find the window's cracked. They find a little box that's sitting there, maybe like where the rifle was sitting, and they find, supposedly, but they don't have a copy of it, a paper sack in the corner there, and then the 3 shells on the left and the 3 shells on the right. That's all you got. You got no rifle, you got no shooter. Okay? Is your automatic assumption that, oh, whoever the shooter is, because we don't know who the shooter is, must have brought the rifle that we haven't found yet, that we don't know what kind of rifle or how big it is, must have brought it in that bag that's folded up right there on the floor. That looks like any normal bag that would have been in this, school book depository. That's going to be your first instinct? Think about it. If you're in law enforcement, okay, and you go out to the range to practice with firing your rifle, do you take your rifle in a paper bag or your gun in a paper bag? Most likely not. Who takes a rifle in a fucking paper bag? You would have taken it in a rifle case, either a wooden case. Nowadays they have those plastic cases, and then back then they probably would have had like a cloth case of some kind. But who takes it in a paper sack? A flimsy paper sack. So to think that all those officers, that was their first instinct to say, that must have been what he carried the rifle into the school book depository. They must have used this damn rifle, this piece of folded paper that's sitting over here on the left. That would be your first instinct? And then your second instinct would be to disturb the paper sack that you've placed on this sack, that's the sack that, you know, he carried the rifle in. Your second instinct is to pick it up and disturb the crime scene. It doesn't make any fucking sense, you know, unless we're dealing with, you know, Billy Bob Thornton Sheriffs Incorporated. Again, my first instinct, if you go into a crime scene, okay, and you see, I don't know, you see a jacket, are you going to automatically assume, oh, that must be the jacket that he carried the pistol into the house and shot the guy with? No, that's not going to be your first instinct. You're going to, of course, take care of all the items that maybe have something to do with it, but that's not going to be your first instinct, okay? Because you don't know, the guy could have brought the damn pistol in his back pocket, you know, or tucked it behind his shirt. You don't know. He could have just walked in carrying it. Who knows? So why would they zero in on this piece of paper, and there's plenty of cardboard boxes and paper all around this damn building, and they're going to focus in on this one piece of paper they say that it was there that wasn't? They don't have a picture of it at all. And again, you're presenting it to a jury. Well, you know, jurors, we don't have a picture of that piece of paper that we instantly zeroed in on and assumed that the rifle must have been carried into the sniper's building with that piece of paper. For no reason we made that assumption. But we don't have a picture of it in that corner where we say we found it in the sniper's nest. And the one we do have, well, it's been damaged, okay, in the FBI laboratory, the super secret top FBI laboratory, the best in the world. They damaged our one and only paper sack, and there's no fingerprints of Oswald on the paper sack, okay, but we say that he used the paper sack to carry the rifle. And then we've even got this guy that we tried to frame, okay, to make him part of the conspiracy, but we've got his testimony saying that he saw Oswald bring in that same piece of paper, but it was a lot shorter than the one that we found, okay. But we can't even show the witnesses, like Frazier or other people, the paper bag, supposedly that saw the paper bag, because it's been damaged by the super secret professional FBI laboratory when they tried to find fingerprints but couldn't find fingerprints. So what we did is 10 days later we went back and we got paper that's not the same type of paper and not the same type of tape, but it was all that they had there, and we made a fake bag that looked similar to the one that we say that we found in the window. And with this fake bag, we showed the witnesses the fake bag, okay, and asked them if that was the same bag. You know what happened to that fucking bag? All that testimony, thrown out, no good. Disregard. In a real trial, that's exactly why he couldn't go to trial. Because he couldn't get a fair trial if they were going to be allowed to, you know, put a photo with no bag and then say the bag was there, okay? And then show the witnesses the bag, but it's a fake bag. That's not the original bag they say that was there, you know? And then again, just disregard completely that Oswald's fingerprints weren't found on the bag at all. Even though oily fingerprints absorb into paper very, very well. And then just completely disregard that there was no oil from the rifle found on the inside of the bag. There's no marks from the metal found on the inside of the bag. Nothing like that. Just completely ignore that. But we've got this fake bag that we can show the witnesses who supposedly saw the bag, that said the bag was shorter, Okay? You see how crazy this is? This is why I'm spending so much time on it, because this is their fucking case. All this other crap, whether Oswald was a communist, or whether he went to Russia, or whether he spoke Russian, or whether he took a shot at fucking General Walker, or whether Oswald even owned the rifle. Who cares if he owns the rifle? Okay? Oswald could have owned 100 rifles. But if his fingerprints weren't on the rifle that shot the president, it don't matter how many rifles or pictures of rifles Oswald was found with. If his fingerprints aren't on the rifle and aren't on the bag they say the rifle was brought in, and the paraffin test, and this is like just it's like a vicious circle. This is why he couldn't go to trial, because any two-bit Better Call fucking Saul lawyer would have ripped the Warren Commission's case to fucking shreds. Okay? You can go thumb through, well, there's no phone books nowadays, but in the old days you could just flip through the phone books in the attorney section, put your finger down on any two-bit lawyer, get yourself a real estate lawyer or someone who does real estate trust, and he could tear this case to pieces. Okay? It's just that fucking simple. Game over. Case dis-fucking-missed. Jury, thank you for your time. You can go home now. Every time I read something more, it puts another nail in the coffin that Oswald was guilty. Sure, you can say that Oswald was a communist and is an idealist, and he went to Russia and he married a Russian girl. And again, there's nothing saying he hated Kennedy. He loved Kennedy. He hated Walker. Oswald's an anti-fascist. He was pro-communist, pro-Marxist. So it makes sense that he would shoot at Walker. But again, why would you shoot Kennedy if you shot at Walker? Because Kennedy fired Walker. Oswald would praise Kennedy and put Walker in a mental institution. That would get extra kudo points with Oswald, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you think? But yet, we're just supposed to accept that, oh, because Oswald's a communist, he's just going to kill anybody. And because the same gun that was found there, okay, was the same gun that maybe Oswald had his wife take a picture of him with. Okay? But again, it just goes back to this vicious cycle. There's no fingerprints of Oswald. If he owned that fucking rifle, ever, don't you think there'd be a few fingerprints somewhere on the scope? Somewhere he forgot to wipe down, maybe? Even if he wiped it down the day before? If you're going to frame Oswald, wouldn't they leave his fingerprints on there? But there's no fingerprints. The reason there's no fingerprints, okay, is because whoever fired that rifle was using gloves and went over the rifle before it got to the school book depository to make sure their prints weren't on there. That's why it's so clean. You know, we're going to go over testimony that when he was at this sportsman's shooting range, that one of the men there handled the rifle the weekend before and was helping him to adjust the scope. Where's that guy's fingerprints? Not there. They had to clean the rifle completely and then oil it up to frame Oswald. Okay? Pretty fucking simple. Anyway, again, I just go in this vicious circle, just keeps going around and around and around. And like I said, if it ever went to trial, there would have been this vicious circle that you could never get away from. Okay? That Frazier, they've tried to frame Frazier and make him say stuff that he didn't say, but he did say that Oswald had. Do you think that they've been able to blackmail Frazier? They would have had him blackmailed that, yeah, I did see Oswald, but he didn't cuff his hands. Frazier wasn't going to say that. Where's that statement? Saying they saw Oswald carry the rifle in. The reason why Curry, or Fritz, was it Fritz or Curry? Curry took that statement is because it would have said that it would have taken out the cuffing at the bottom of, underneath the rifle, underneath the package there. That wouldn't have been there. It just would have been Oswald carried in this package. Then they can make the length of the rifle anything they want, okay? And again, there's no fingerprints of Oswald on the package anywhere, okay? The FBI destroyed the package trying to find fingerprints. You think they would have found something? The best lab in the fucking world wouldn't have found some fingerprints on the package? Oswald's handling this package, putting it in the back seat, picking it up, taking it in, holding the package lengthwise and pulling the rifle out. He would have left some fingerprints, don't you think? And then he folds it and puts it in the corner, and they don't have a picture of the package in the corner. Okay? That they automatically assume that whoever was firing at the president brought the rifle in the package. Why? There's no reason to assume that. Okay? It's just sitting there. It's a package. But they don't have a picture of it. They take pictures of the shells. They take picture of the window. They take pictures of the sniper's nest box, but not of the incriminating paper bag that had no paraffin, nitrates inside, had no oil inside, it had no Oswald fingerprints on the outside. And again, there's no fingerprints of Oswald on the rifle. There's no paraffin on Oswald's cheek. That's their case. This is why Oswald had to die, okay? Oswald could never go to trial, because if you kill Oswald, then you can paint the case you want. You've got no one objecting to anything. Your Honor, we call it to disregard the picture of this bag that isn't there because it isn't there. Your Honor, we cause to throw out this bag because it doesn't even look like the bag that supposedly the witnesses saw Oswald carrying. And it's got Oswald's fingerprints nowhere on it. And then, Your Honor, the government's trying to use a fake bag that they manufactured of not even the same paper, okay, to fool the witnesses. Your Honor, this is fake, not even evidence, it's fake. We call for the jury to disregard the paper bag, the photo, and the fake paper bag. That's their case. We also call for the jury to disregard the rifle connected to our client, because there's nothing connecting our rifle to the client in that window firing it. No fingerprints, no paraffin. That's why I said this is this vicious cycle you can never get away from. And they knew it. Okay? Once they assumed that Oswald's fingerprints, they told Oswald, bring that rifle, maybe, bring it in that bag, and then when they didn't find any fingerprints, maybe Oswald was smart, maybe he wiped everything off, but it's easier to wipe fingerprints off wood and metal, but it's almost impossible to wipe fingerprints off of paper. Okay? And so, then the throwback's going to be, well, if Oswald didn't bring the rifle, where's the curtain rods? Well, Your Honor, the defendant doesn't have to defend himself and help the state make its case. All we have to do is put reasonable doubt. We don't have to say, here's the curtain rods, or Oswald threw them in the trash. We don't have to say anything about the curtain rods. That's you. Okay? But whether there's curtain rods or not, still doesn't put Oswald in that window firing that rifle at the president. That's your case. Case dismissed. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good day. Anyway, we're going to move on. So that's basically it on the paper bag, the extra stuff. So not only did they have no paper bag in the photo, the paper bag was destroyed by the testing by the FBI, and they didn't find any of Oswald's fingerprints on the bag. They had to construct their own fake bag to bring to the Warren Commission to show in the non-trial, to show the witnesses they had to see if that looked similar to the bag that Oswald supposedly brought in. Which means they have no case. Anyway, we'll keep moving on here. Okay, so we're on this article by Mark Lane. We're going to try to finish this up, but we also went down a side stuff about Edward Epstein, this journalist. So we're going to read a little bit more about him and find out what they say here. And I finished up about my diamond story, so we'll keep going down here. It says, in Have You Ever Tried to Sell a Diamond, Edward J. Epstein detailed the heavy marketing strategy used by diamond company De Beers to turn tiny rocks of transparent crystallized carbon into highly demanded, high-price, mass marketing items. Yeah, that one's really interesting. I didn't read that book, but I know the whole deal. So De Beers, like I said, every year, I don't know the exact amount, we'll just say every year if De Beers mines 100 tons of diamonds, I would just say, we'll throw that out there for an even number. They only release for sale maybe 20% of that. Okay, 20 tons. Okay? And then they hold the rest back in storage. And that's, supply and demand. De Beers owns probably 90% of the diamonds in the world that are put out there. So if you control the monopoly on it, and you control that market of how much is coming out, you can name your price. They also increase the price, but they put out this thing, about 3 months of salary. Everybody, you go to get your girlfriend or fiance a wedding ring, and of course the first thing the guy's going to tell you, the salesman, you got usually about 3 months of salary. Okay, they came up with that figure because they can set the price whatever the fuck they want. It's just a piece of glass. That's all it is. Okay. So you set value to it. Now, all of a sudden, you see most of the diamonds are out there are ranging 3 months of salary starting off, and then up from there. Okay, so that's why. And then, then they put out there among the female population the rumor that, if your fiancé loves you, he's going to spend 3 months of his salary. So when she gets the diamond, she's going to go assess it. I guarantee you 60-70% of these women out there are going to go take that diamond when you're not there to someone and have them assess the value of it. And if they found, they know, believe me, before they marry you, they're going to know how much money you're making. Okay? And they know that if you're making $1,200 a month and you give them a diamond that's not $3,600, you're probably not going to be getting married. They're going to be a little bit pissed. Okay? If they find out that diamond's only worth $900, they're not going to be happy. That whole myth was created by De Beers to increase the value. Okay, because De Beers, think about it. De Beers is controlling production or mining. Okay, this for the mining part. They're handling the transportation of the diamonds and security. They're handling the production in the bourse. They're handling the wholesale from the bourse to the retailers. And they're also handling the marketing in on the retailers by telling them, hey, this is the suggested retail value, 3 times the price of whatever the sucker's income is. So they're controlling it from the beginning to the end. This is why No one in De Beers is poor, okay? Matter of fact, there's still De Beers guys in South Africa, okay? But the majority of the guys moved to Israel after apartheid. And matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this, but the reason why apartheid ended, okay, and went on for so long is because De Beers and the gold, the gold companies and the other rich mineral agencies in South Africa were worried what would happen to their companies and their families if majority rule, the blacks took over, basically. And so it wasn't the South African government, okay, that started negotiations with the ANC, okay? It was De Beers and other groups that started negotiations with the ANC in Mozambique, and then they moved it to Scotland and started negotiating, because De Beers had a lot of influence on the government in South Africa at the time in the 80s, and started negotiations between the ANC and the apartheid government and the nationalist government. And the main sticking points where, the ANC was majority communist, so would they take over the mines and, nationalize them and communism, like what Castro did in Cuba, or would they allow private property and the people who own the lands to stay in the mines to stay in the owners? And the ANC agreed that they wanted the vote, but they would allow private property and all this kind of stuff. Okay. Now they reneged on that. They went back and took over certain things, and nothing like a good old hardcore communist fighting for the revolution when he gets a little cash in their Swiss bank account. That tends to mellow them out quite a bit. And so you've seen all the corruption in the ANC, and that's all about the spoils, okay, that De Beers and these other companies have managed to basically bribe the ANC and to soften communism and to become good old, not really capitalist, but what do you call it, pirate capitalists, I guess you could say, where you take over the wealth and then you live the good life and then you don't want to give that up. So that's a lot of the corruption that's going on in South Africa now. And so, but De Beers may sell off the corporation some of the mines, okay, and give some of the profits to some of the people in the ANC, but after shell company after shell company after shell company, when it comes down to it, De Beers still owns the majority of the mines in South Africa. It's just really fucking simple. And that's what Epstein's going into here. I didn't mean to get off on this, track, but that's what's going on. And it's brilliant, it's smart. I mean, De Beers, they should get the fruit of their wealth, because they came from, the Netherlands, and they had nothing. And they stumbled upon these mines in South Africa, and they worked them, and they developed them, and they invested their money and suffered, and to get these mines going, they developed these strategies, so they should benefit from their hard work, and their family and their generations should benefit from their, great-grandparents' hard work from the 1840s and something. But that's the story about De Beers. And let's see, there's another one here. He says, in his 1996 book, The Secret History of Arm & Hammer, the author revealed, among other things, how the prolific businessman laundered money to finance espionage for the Soviets in the 1920s and 1930s. Well, Arm & Hammer, was from the Soviet Union. He was actually from what would be Ukraine, I believe from Odessa, or maybe even, I believe Odessa. But he was a Jewish guy from Odessa. Okay, Odessa's really big center of Judaism. Not as big after World War II, but especially before World War II. But Arm & Hammer came to the U.S., got involved in various businesses. I think he was involved in art sales and stuff like that, and eventually where he made most of his money was through oil. Getty Oil is what he got into. But he got into Getty Oil because basically how Armand Hammer got rich, okay, was basically selling stuff to the Soviet Union government and becoming a capitalist in the communist, country. So he would sell. The Russians needed hard currency, needed cash. Okay, they didn't have a good way of getting their raw materials out. Okay, like their oil and their phosphorates and all these other things that. I mean, the Soviet Union, then Russia has a lot of mineral wealth. Okay, this is what's kept Putin in power, is the oil industry, and kept the oligarchs in power is a lot of the natural wealth in Russia. Well, the Soviets had a lot of natural wealth, but they didn't have because of blockades against communism, they didn't have a lot of ways of getting it out. So Armand Hammer was this go-between. He had connections in the oil industry and other businessmen in on Wall Street in New York, and the Wall Street and the Republicans may scream about the evils of communism, but there's nothing like making a good deal when you got a monopoly on a certain industry that's controlled by the Soviet Union, and then you're their only outlet, and then you get rich doing that. Okay, and that's how Armand Hammer got rich. And then of course he got into chemicals. Everybody knows about Armand Hammer, baking soda and powders and soaps and stuff like that. But he also got really, really wealthy off the off the oil industry. So that's what you do when you make money. You diverse into other industries, because eventually, the good run's going to run out on whatever you're selling, and you're going to have something else. Just like the guys that are making cigarettes now, they're getting into other industries because they saw the writing on the wall. Same thing with Armand Hammer. He got really rich doing that. Had a good relationship with the Soviets, because it's like this. There's a philosophical partners, but if you can make some money for someone, they're not really going to care what your political philosophy is. Okay, and this is the same way with like Trump. Trump doesn't care about communism, and he's not as patriotic as they say. So he makes deals with the Russians. He offers them ways to launder their money, their ill-gotten gains, and to escape, Russia. And then on the other end, these same people that he helps, these oligarchs, escape Putin, he also sells back information to Putin through Epstein. Before Epstein, Epstein was his lawyer, got busted. So Trump was getting it both ways, and then he screws over the American taxpayer by, he'll have a couple extra buildings that he'll write off as a loss, and then he'll end up paying $750 in fucking taxes. Because he's using the tax laws that all the rich people write. Okay, if you and I wrote the tax laws, Trump would be paying 30, 40, 50%. But because the rich people finance these congressmen and senators, rich people write the tax laws. And it's not to benefit us. It's to benefit them, okay? Anyway, so that's my rant about that. Let's see what else here. Hold on one second. I got 4 more minutes. In 2017, Edward J. Epstein was subject of a documentary, Hall of Mirrors, directed by sisters Ina and Ina Stalikic, and which premiered at the 55th New York Film Festival. This covered his most notable articles and books, including close looks at the findings of the Warren Commission, the structure of the diamond industry, the strange career of Armand Hammer, and the inner workings of the big-time journalism himself. These were interwoven in in-progress investigation into the circumstances around Edward Snowden's 2013 leak of classified documents resulting in Epstein's book, How America Lost Its Secrets, Edward Snowden, the Man and the Theft. Despite false claims of both documentary and the book affirming that Snowden was a Russian spy, neither did so. Neither did so? Okay. On the contrary, in his book, Epstein concludes that there is no evidence that Snowden was employed by Russian intelligence services while in the United States. What he did, well, that doesn't matter, because You know, if you give up all your secrets to the Russians, even if you weren't working with them before, you're a fucking spy now. Okay, that's basically the way it is. Same thing with Oswald. When he went to Russia, he said he was going to give up all his secrets. Well, that made him a fucking traitor and a spy. Same thing with Snowden. Okay, and then especially if you take Russian citizenship, because you know if you come back to the United States, you're going to get prosecuted. Was that Snowden a former civilian contracted at the NSA as the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence unanimously confirmed on December 2016, removed digital copies of 1.5 million classified files from the NSA. Well, that would be a spy thing. That would be called espionage. Epstein also said that Edward Snowden went into Hong Kong, where he secretly contacted Russian government officials, which Vladimir Putin revealed a September 3, 2013 televised press conference, and the House Intelligence Committee found based on its access to U.S. intelligence. The reason why the Russians were standoffish at first with Snowden, because two things. It was too good to be true. You know, how do the Russians know that Snowden wasn't a dangle? That 90% of the crap that he had on his 1.5 million classified was true, but then there was another 10% that was enough to fuck him up for years and years and years and years and years, going down rabbit holes and consuming lots of time on their Russian intelligence services, chasing after rabbits that didn't exist. Okay? And it wouldn't be past the CIA to do that. I mean, if I was in the CIA, I would have done it. You know, if you knew a guy was dissatisfied, you'd make sure he got access to certain documents, and then you'd throw in dangle stuff that was totally rabbit hole, so the Russians would be chasing their ass for years, 50 years, trying to figure out what was real, what wasn't really real. Thus you have your hall of mirrors. That's what I would have done. Or again, Snowden could have been a fucking Oswald. He could have been a fake defector. They don't know this. Putin doesn't know this. That's why they were cool on him. And also deniability. Well, no, we didn't recruit him. He came to us. Da-da-da-da-da. And we're still talking 2013. Russia's still kind of in the G12 plus Russia. And so they're going to, oh, no, he came to us. We didn't know anything about it, He's still playing that card, okay? This is before he invades Ukraine in 2014. Anyway, a conclusion that Epstein confirmed with Representative Adam Schiff, the committee's ranked Democrat, and Representative Mike Rogers is ranking Republican. All the Democrats as well as Republicans signed the report. The fact that a defector to Moscow had in contact between 2013 and 2016 with an adversary's intelligence service does not make him a spy. What? And therefore Epstein never claimed that Edward Snowden was a spy in the film Hall of Mirrors or in his books. Nonetheless, he said other whistleblowers have gone to their respective service inspector generals with concerns. By contrast, Snowden's got in touch with agents of the Russian government. Now, I seem to remember there was that one girl who showed one classified document to a news source and ended up going to jail under the Trump presidency for 5 years. And here Snowden has copies of those documents, 1.5 million classified documents, okay, and his brain knowledge of how all these different systems work. I'd definitely call that guy a spy. In the old days, they would have taken him out, after they gave him a good trial, they would have taken him out back, after they sweated him for about 5-6 years and pulled all the information out that he had given the Russians. They would have hanged his ass. But I guess you can't do that nowadays. Anyway, so this is some of his published work. And so you look at these things. Legend, The Secret World of Lee Oswald, The Warren Commission and the Establishment of Truth, The JFK Assassination Diary, My Search for Answers to the Mystery of the Century. So, this is what you would do in the CIA, is if you want to deflect blame from yourself, and I'm not talking about the organization that contained members of the right-wing conservative CIA. I'm talking about the legitimate mainstream CIA. If you know you have people that killed Kennedy, but you're worried about methods and means and also any kind of, ripping the CIA to shreds by some fact-finding mission, some, maverick in Congress, you would help establish either Oswald just did it alone, or maybe there are others, but, it was the mafia, it was the KGB, all these other things. You would do everything to deflect it away from you. And that's what you see happening here with Epstein and the CIA. You need a mouthpiece that's not someone saying, hey, I'm writing for the CIA, or I work for the CIA and I wrote this book to show how good the CIA is. No, you don't do that. You get someone, maybe even who was against the Warren Commission, and then you feed them information. Okay? Maybe they know they're working for you to shine up the CIA, or maybe they don't. Maybe you're leading them by the nose. I got a good story for you. Here's some good leads, Maybe Epstein doesn't even know it's the CIA. Okay? This is how you would work it. Anyway, what do I know? And here's the thing. I'm not in the government. I was never in the intelligence, never in the CIA, nothing like that. All I know is common sense. All I know is if I was going to do it, from my experience of 56 years, this is how I would fucking do it. Now, I'm sure there were other ways, maybe better ways, smarter ways, less risky ways, sneakier ways of doing it, but if I was the guy in the chair in charge, this is the way I would do it. I would run it secretly through a well-known journalist, preferably someone who was against the Warren Commission or wrote against the Warren Commission or posed against the Warren Commission, and I would lead him along with secret documents and information, insider, make him feel special. This is what we got. Yeah, it was some of our guys, but you can't say that, and we're trying to help you out. We're just trying to be honest and clear the air, and and meanwhile I'm giving him information that steers it away from the CIA towards the mafia, towards the racists, towards the military, towards the Russians, anybody but us. Because we don't want some maverick senator or congressman in the Intelligence Committee with a hard-on for cleaning house in the CIA that we don't have under control. We don't want that. We don't want some loose cannon on the deck just rolling all over our product, not only getting us fired, destroying our pensions and our reputation, but also inadvertently exposing secret things that we have. And here's the thing, I agree with the CIA not releasing certain documents right now, or maybe ever, because there are certain things, people that the CIA ran 60 years ago. They may be dead now, but you ran them 60 years ago for a project that, because everything's on a level, you're here, but you got, the Russians are here, and we're here, but we got here in this relationship because we punched them in the gut, here, and here, and here. We had a guy on the inside, here, there, and there, that was giving us information and feeding back false information. And if you go and expose those people, even if it was 60 years ago, and it was the Soviet Union, the Russians are going to realize here that, well, shit, we've got to go back and re-examine all these trails that got us to here and figure out what was real and what wasn't real. And that could tear up a lot of false trails that they've been relying on that are real, that they think are real. Okay? You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying that there's a good reason why not to reveal names even 100 years later. Okay? It's just trust me, just looking at it logically, if all your life you do something because of this or that, and then you find out that that had nothing to do with it, or you were doing that or reacting to something because it was completely false, that would shake you up pretty bad to get you to really evaluate everything. And when you reevaluate everything, you stop standing on these pillars that maybe some of these pillars were false, and you hop over and make your own pillar, and then the CIA's got to start all over again, building up these false pillars for you to stand on that you don't know are shaky until something happens. Okay? I mean, I'll give you a case in point. We built a new embassy in Moscow because the old embassy was from like, what, the 1920s or something? And when they picked the perfect location, but you know, it's not like the Americans can bring in their own construction guys. Now they had managers and supervisors and architects and stuff like that, but the grunt work, the guys pouring the concrete, running the bulldozers, are all Russians. Okay? Maybe they brought in a few guys, but it's going to be limited to how many people they can bring in, especially equipment. Okay? And then you can't bring in your secret, diplomatic luggage, you can't bring in enough concrete in your diplomatic luggage to build that fucking building. It's just impossible. So you're going to have to get those materials. You may be able to get the majority of the people from out of the country, but the material, you're going to have to truck it in from there, or maybe you're trucking it in all the way from, you can't truck in concrete from West Germany all the way to Moscow 1,000 miles. It's just going to be almost logistically impossible. And and the Russians are going to be doing shit to those hundreds of truckloads along the way anyway. Okay? So what the Russians did is, in every pillar, in every wall, in every ceiling, even though we'd have our guys check it out with the concrete, and the concrete would set, they would come back at night or come back before and put in little sensors that couldn't be detected. So the whole building was literally lit for sound. It's sort of like that Batman 2, where he's using all the cell phones to triangulate and find everything. And that's what the Russians did. They had all these non-signal sending sensors that couldn't be detected in every in every floor, every concrete pillar, everywhere. Okay? And the whole building was lit for sound. And besides that, they had other people working the Marines and working, there was that Lone Tree sex scandal that was going on where the Marine guards were, going to Russian prostitutes and giving up their passwords and secrets and letting people into the damn embassy at night and walk around and take pictures and shit. I mean, the Russians had us. The Soviets had us. Okay? So, my point is, they had to basically destroy the building and start from scratch. And then, I don't know, again, how they would stop the Russians from doing the same thing again, but apparently they took other measures to stop the Russians this time, supposedly. But we don't know that for sure. There could be still things in the Russian embassy, in the U.S. embassy in Russia today, that we don't know about. And you got to think that if the Soviets were doing it to us in Moscow, the Russians, they built themselves a nice little new embassy just northwest of the White House. And you got to believe that we probably did the same fucking thing. We've got tunnels all up and underneath, going back and forth. We've got, all kinds of listening devices in their buildings. Because if they're doing it to us, we're doing it to them. If we would spend millions of dollars to build a tunnel to go under the wall in Berlin, okay, to tap into their telephone system, you don't think we would have done the same thing under the Moscow, or under the Soviet-Russian embassy in D.C.? Maybe I'm naive. Maybe they didn't do any of that. Maybe now they're listening and they're hearing it. Oh, hey, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that. No. These guys are smart. I hope we're hiring the best and the smartest. We got people going to Georgetown, Cornell, Yale, Harvard. That's a lot of fucking money. And you got to have some pretty damn good grades. And they're all going, not all of them, but a lot of them are going into the CIA and the NSA and counterintelligence and the FBI. So I would hope, because that would kind of be the FBI is kind of bailiwick there, I would hope that someone in one of those organizations would think to do that. But anyway, that's just me. Again, I'm a hardcore, how do you say it, school of hard knocks, life experience, just common sense kind of guy. I don't have a lot of education from Harvard or Yale or anything like that, but I have done a lot of things in my life and worked and been around a lot of people, and so I have a lot of common sense about how I would do things. A lot of, got a lot of that common sense came from getting my ass burnt a lot, but that's how I would do things. I would hope that people with a much better education, much more experience, would be way light years ahead of me on my thinking. Anyway, I didn't mean to go into all these long details. We'll get into George Demorche later on. But what I'm telling you is that, okay, when you're dealing with things like the gun and the paper and the rifle, you're dealing with guys that just, dressmakers that came in and started working the crime lab, okay, in Dallas, and people who were working construction that came in and started working the crime lab in Dallas as policemen and detectives, okay. But when you're dealing with like the FBI and the CIA, you're on another fucking level, okay. Those people don't get to where they're at just for having straight A's. They get to where they're at because they know people, they have straight A's, they have money, and they're smart. They think on a different level. Okay? Way beyond, light years beyond what you and I were thinking on. So anything that you and I could think of today, they've already thought of it 50 years ago. Okay? We're never going to lock them up. We're never going to lock up these people that are blocking this stuff in the CIA. We're never going to find a document that says, yeah, we did it. You can forget it. It's not going to happen. That memo was burnt 50, 60 years ago. But what we can do is have an understanding. Okay? It's sort of like, I'll put it to you like this. The cat, your cat, we'll say is us. And you are, or your the human is the CIA and the FBI. Now, the cat doesn't know where you get the food. All he knows is it comes in a little can that every time he hears that little can opener popping into the can, like that, and then he knows it's dinner time. Okay? He knows that food is on the way. And he can smell it. He doesn't know where the food came from. He doesn't know that you're not some magician that didn't just wave her hand and it made it like that. He doesn't know the process that the food went through, that, a lot of this food's made from corn or beef or leftover beef. He doesn't know that there was some cow out there in the fields in Iowa that got taken to the slaughterhouse, and then the best part of the meats went to the nice restaurants in New York and Los Angeles, and the leftover junk was all ground together and mixed with leftover junk corn that it was brown, nobody wanted, and then put in add some food dye, and they added some chemicals that made it smell good, and then they put it into a can and sealed it up. And then they put it on a truck, on a pallet, went to Walmart. You went to your job and made money, and you got your bank account, you went in there and you bought the can at Walmart at the self-check-in line, like I do. And then you brought it home, and then you had a can opener, and you opened it up, and you gave it to your cat, and the cat's yum, 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 thank you. Oh my God, you're so brilliant. We're the cat. All we know is that there's food out there. There's documents. That's the food. We don't know how it got there. We can kind of put things together, but we don't know where that food came from. We don't know that what's in that can is the ground up pieces of a cow that came from Iowa. As cats, we don't care. We don't know. Now, some of us cats may care. Okay? But the majority of us cats know that, hey, it's there, let's eat it. Now, there's some of us cats that are like, well, how did that food get in that can? And how did that can get in that cupboard? And why is it that this human knows more than we do? Okay? Well, the CIA is the human. They're godlike. Okay? They're never going to sit down and have a conversation with you, okay, or do a video or write a song to the cat and say, the cat food came from a cow in Iowa. Because the cat wouldn't understand. The human is way above comprehension of the cat. And that's the way we are. I'm not saying I'm as dumb as a cat. I'm not saying we're never going to ever figure it out. But we're never going to know everything. And it's impossible to know everything. Okay? All I can do here is just put little pieces, little scraps together. Okay? But like I said, we're never going to have a memo that said, yeah, we did it. And here's the names of people who put it together. And this is the bank accounts of the money we put it through. And this is the name of the shooters that are all dead now that we put together. We're never going to have that. You can forget it. You can obsess all damn day till the day you die and give the information to your kids until the day they die, and they give the information to their grandkids and the day they die. No one's ever going to have that. All we're going to do is get a little closer, okay, to that cat food and maybe figure out that the human didn't make it. That's about it. I know that sounds depressing, but that's the realization I have. That these people are so much smarter than me. Even the shooters had no idea what they were getting involved with. Slap down $10, $20, $100,000. Oh yeah, I'll shoot them. They're not thinking. They're like the cat. They're not thinking past that bowl. When you throw that food down in the bowl, they're like the cat. They're not thinking past that bowl. Well, if I take that money and I kill the president, that means I'm an accessory. And they can't afford to have a walking around accessory. So they're probably going to kill me too. But because it's so much money, it appeals to my sense of greed that I ain't thinking about that. I'm thinking about the girls I'm going to be having, in the car I'm going to be driving. Anyway, so the point, I guess, if there is a point, is that we're never going to know everything, but we're going to get a little closer. Like I used that example of the burnt down house. We've got a burnt down house we're looking at. We see the foundation. We'll never be able to put that fucking house back together. Okay? But we can figure out from the paperwork how much it was worth, how large it was, how many rooms it had, who built it, who designed it, who's the architect, how much taxes were paid on it. All these documents we can put together. We can kind of get a better idea, maybe some old pictures of it, but we're never going to be able to put that fucking house back together like it was before. Because like I said, these people are thinking on a different level. But also, one thing we got to understand is that these people are men. A lot of these men have already died already that put this all together. Okay? And now what we have is just people that are trying to not protect who did it, but to protect the agency whose some of its members did it, so it didn't come back to burn their ass. So they can keep going with their pensions and they're paying their mortgage and their reputation intact. Anyway, I'm past my time, and that's it for now, and we will pick this up next time. Alright, take care.